Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Storytelling with Vuelio Canvas. Today, we'll be showing you how to bring your presentations to life so you can show off your campaigns in the way that they deserve. Having an excellent campaign is only one piece of the puzzle. Being able to show how and why it's a success is vital for your stakeholders, both internally and externally. I'll be showing you the Vuelio Canvas, a simple, easy to use and beautiful solution for all of your storytelling needs. First, a little bit about me. I'm Louise Mendelsohn, Head of Business Development here at Vuelio. That means in my role, I spend a lot of time talking with PRs, public affairs managers, crisis managers, in fact, communications people of all kinds, talking about and listening to their concerns. The ability to accurately and easily present a PR's professional's work is one such concern that comes up again and again, and increasingly so in the modern age when there's so much different content to deal with, offline, social, video, and so on and so forth. So we're definitely hearing about it a lot. I'm sure many of you listening will have questions, comments, and ideas on today's webinar. You can share them now or even after the webinar, and we'll make sure we cover everything you want us to. You can tweet us using our hashtag, Facebook us, email us, or just use the dialog box in the bottom left-hand corner of your webinar software. We'll try to address everything that we can in the next half an hour, but anything we miss we'll pick up later on directly with you or maybe even on our blog. So, this is a picture of you after your campaign has proved itself a huge success. You had clear objectives, perhaps from your client or internal stakeholders, and you didn't just meet them, you smashed them. You worked out the KPIs, did your research, targeted influencers, you were creative as hell, and everything went exactly to plan. At this point, you are victorious. You know how much work went into getting here, and the rewards are justly deserved. But how easy is it to prove that to everyone else? Does your boss know that you're amazing? What about the clients if you're in-house? Do sales or finance really know why you're so happy right now? So, success can come from a million different places. Maybe you were after traditional coverage, maybe online coverage, or perhaps social media was the key focus, and a better presence on Twitter or Instagram was what the client wanted. Maybe you needed to increase revenue or customer interactions. It doesn't matter what the objectives were or where the success comes from. It all needs to be delivered back to your client or manager or stakeholders. Otherwise, you've only told half the story. And what are your sources to tell the rest of that story? So for a digital campaign, you're probably spread broadly with videos, written content, social posts, articles, stats, documents, PDFs, and audio, all contributing towards your success. That's a lot of input to display in just one output. So how do you do it? Now, chances are, at some point, you've done something that looks a little bit like this. Now, I can feel a few listeners nodding. A few people have actually commented on the webinar software there with a few lols here and there. Or perhaps if you haven't done something like this, perhaps you're still using spreadsheets or graphs to prove your worth. Maybe you're manually clipping, copying and pasting coverage and generating PDFs. So, a variety of things that you could be doing. With regards to Excel, it is incredible. There's no question about it. But the one thing is, it's not presentation software. So all it does, it can often confuse or complicate things, especially visuals. It takes time to understand and work through. And often with Excel, it's time that your stakeholder audience doesn't have. So what do? You go to the quicker, more visually appealing solution. But all you end up with is another PowerPoint presentation. We've all been in this meeting room, so we all know it's a pretty stock photo. Often no one in real life looks that interested. One slide at a time, the coverage you're delivering loses your audience's interest with each transition. But heaven forbid you put too much content on one slide, that will go ahead and kill the meeting. Everything needs you to explain it as well, that's the other thing. But just wouldn't it be better if the story could tell itself? At this point, I'm actually aware I'm telling you this story on PowerPoint, so it's probably time we switch things up a bit, and I showed you the Vuelio Canvas. This simple solution combines aspects of Excel with the visuals of PowerPoint, allowing anyone to easily access your story and all related content and truly see the work that went into your outstanding campaign. So I'm going to jump into a few real examples to actually bring this to life. And if there's any questions, either based on what I've said so far or perhaps based on what I'm about to show, please do raise your hand at any point. I'm just sharing another aspect of screen so that you can see what I'm now broadcasting. So if you just give that a second to load up. I'm going to jump into a few examples. So what we're in right now is the Vuelio account. But I want to just focus on Samsung for a second. So just in terms of a bit of intro, Taylor Herring won Best Technology Campaign of the Year for their mobile billboard capturing Britain's greatest views in Samsung Galaxy S8 at last week's PR Awards. We're actually there, so if any of you were, I hope you had a good night. So we've actually made a canvas not focusing on that specific one, but for another one of their campaigns, just focusing on Samsung, because it was a really good and quite timely example. So here's the Smart Things campaign, which aimed to build fame and awareness for Samsung's Smart Things range around the UK launch. So what we've done, and we've got a few different examples to walk through here. First and foremost, we've got, so this is the canvas, just to be really clear. This is an example of a canvas that was built to convey this campaign. So first of all, on the left-hand side, we've got the campaign brief. So what was the background? We've got press releases. If you just focus on the left-hand side for a second, we've got different press releases relating to this specific campaign. We've then got a summary of national coverage. But if you focus on the middle two columns, you've then got a whole range of other related content. And what's really important here, just to notice, is that you've got a collection of print content, your own press releases, social media, video. And the key thing is that all of the content that has been selected, and bearing in mind these are manually curated, so you can decide what you present and how you present it. But every single item on this wall can be shared. So if I'm the recipient of this canvas, if I'm viewing it, I can actually interact with any of these items, perhaps even play that video, and do so all live from the canvas itself. So this is a good example of one where we've tried to tell a full story, because we haven't just got the resulting coverage, but we've actually got the brief, the related press releases, and then content showcasing how successful it was. So as I said, that's content achieved in outlets like the Business Insider or social coverage and so on and so forth. So this is just one example looking at Samsung as an example of how we've got not just related coverage, but actually the background of that campaign, the brief. I'm going to jump into another example as well, just to focus on Perseus for a second. So Perseus have used, this is an example of where it's also been used to present campaign coverage, but more focusing on the coverage itself. So Perseus' Dirt is Good campaign encourages outdoor play for children and the freedom to get messy without it impacting on their clothes or costly implications. Now, Edelman Intelligence conducted research that found on average children now spend less time outdoors than a prison inmate. So I think we can see why this campaign is valuable to the audience. Now, as I said, this one is focusing specifically on coverage. But what's nice about this one is that, again, you can see all of the different types of coverage. And this comes back to the challenge that we're hearing in the market. When you've got social media and print and online and various graphics that you might want to input as well, the challenge that we hear is, well, how do I get that to all render and display in one place in a consistent format? And that's basically what the canvas is all about. And just to reiterate, every single item you can act on from here. So if I wanted to follow directly, so if you wanted to use this to boost social media coverage, you can absolutely do that. So I could follow or interact with this tweet. Again, I could play this video. I could burst out some of these graphics to understand a bit more about what's being said. So as you can see here, we've got the Samsung example where we've got more of the background, what was the campaign about, how did the agency brief specifically the client or vice versa probably in that example. We've then got the Perseus one, which focuses on key coverage relating to a campaign. And then just to show you the variety, I mean, there's a whole range of examples that we've got, but just another one just to really show how this is, quite versatile. So obviously I've picked quite a couple of very well-known big corporate brands, but even Chester Zoo, a company who used the canvas to showcase news to relate to campaigns, but also to attract people to come to the zoo. So these sorts of canvas walls can be hosted on websites, of which I've got an example shortly. But the idea of the canvas is that it is so versatile. So whether you're, public sector, private sector agency, it's all about telling your story. So we've touched on today how you can tell your story in relation to a specific campaign. But what about if you just want to tell a story to round up key coverage relating to a specific month? Or you want to showcase key coverage relating to a specific, period with certain quantitative metrics to show the successes of what you've done. It can absolutely be used for that as well. But ultimately, using visually powerful examples like this gives you a feel for how you can present coverage in a way that engages and grabs the audience. And that's the sort of thing that we're really hearing from our client base and customers who are using this, that actually rather than having to build quite a large PowerPoint, rather than having to annotate on various PDFs and things like that, this is a way of actually conveying that content in a really interactive way. So we've got, probably 15 or so different stories on here, but just all on one easy-to-view interactive page. And it's worth noting, I will just jump into the Vuelio system very, very briefly, but ultimately, just in case any of you haven't realized, it's the end user who creates these. So you guys handpick the coverage, you decide what items do you want to display, what metrics do you want to showcase, how do you want to position those items? Do you want 3 columns like the example here, or do you want everything to just be displayed on one long view? So we've basically got different templates that you can choose to use so that you can decide how that content is created and how it's actually laid out and positioned on the screen. So I'll show you that in just a second. But one final thing, just to give you an idea of the versatility and the way in which these can be used. Any canvas wall exists as a URL, okay? So it can be shared with any recipients. They don't have to be part of your organization. Obviously, the aim is to publicize this as broadly as possible. But because they're URLs, they can also be hosted or embedded within a specific website. So one client of ours who's done that quite recently, this is a website whereby you go to Media, Press Office, and it actually takes you to a hosted Vuelio Canvas. Now, you obviously don't realize that you have left the website or navigated externally, but ultimately this is an example of how a canvas can be used as a newsroom. So it's got an About Us section, recent news items, contact us, and so on and so forth. So what you can do is actually use these not just to tell a story, which was the first example, but actually use these to constantly keep journalists and members of the public aware of what you're doing and the successes on an ongoing basis. So if you wanted to have, as we've got here, let me search for the word director, because we can see that that's in the top item, you'd be able to then specifically see the items that mention the word that you're searching for. So it becomes a searchable newsroom. And these solutions can be really attractive because often getting your web team or getting approval to get pages designed and built and developed like this can be quite costly, quite time consuming. But we've got a fantastic off-the-shelf solution here which you're in total control of. So having your coverage displayed in real time, having a press release posted up in real time, it's another use case, if you like, for the canvas. So hopefully that gives everybody a bit of food for thought. I've gone through a few different examples there. One, as I said, is just telling that full story. So here was the brief for the campaign. Here were the press releases that we issued. And ultimately then here's the resulting coverage. The other two, the Perseus one in particular, is more just looking at a roundup of coverage. So it's more just a wall to showcase all of the results. But the flexibility is genuinely limitless. So in terms of what you want to do, how you want to lay out the content, and ultimately how many you have that, in your system at any one time. So, what I mean by that is what you use it for. You could be using canvases for multiple things concurrently. So just to give you a feel for that, I'm going to jump into the Vuelio system. Now this is an account whereby we've got all of our different functionality live, but just to focus on the canvas for just a second, you'll see at the top right hand side here it says select a canvas. If I open up, you'll see an infinite list of different canvases that we've created maybe for our clients or prospective clients or just our own research and things like that. So what you would do, I think there's a nice one here called Vuelio, which I could go to. So just to give you an idea, if we were to load up, you see all of the canvas walls exist within your own Vuelio account. So what you can do is you can select and display those at any point in time. If you then want to share the canvas, you then have an option to do that at the top here, where you can copy the URL for that specific wall. So I think that's just the internet just not doing us any favors there, but I think that should be loading up for everybody now. So I've just, as you can see from the menu bar on the right hand side, I've taken the canvas that I wanted to work with specifically. I then have the option to copy the URL, which is then what I could cut and paste into an email or share or host or what have you, and then that's how you can basically communicate these. But if I wanted to edit it, now just to give you a quick idea, I won't turn this into a full-on training session, but I did explain how you could change the format. So let's say I wanted to re-template that one, and rather than it being 2 columns beside each other, 3 columns, sorry, beside each other, I wanted to make it 2. So you'll see that there's a handful of different templates available on the left-hand side, just to really suit your presentation requirements for any specific campaign. All I've done at the click of one button is switch this from a 3-column display to a 2-column display. So the point I'm just trying to make here is the ease of being able to change the formatting, maybe rejig some of the items around, maybe relabel them. So you'll see this one on the right hand side has got a title, but the one on the left doesn't. If I want to pop a title on this one, I would click edit and I would then specifically annotate that tile. So there's a lot of flexibility in a few areas. One, in terms of the actual template layout itself. How many columns does the page have? Is it horizontal? Is it vertical? How's the content ordered? What items are at the top? What items are at the bottom? How do you annotate them? Do you annotate them at all? All these sorts of things are basically your choices, if you like. You click edit here and you've got the options to manipulate the content, edit the content, and so on and so forth. But ultimately you are in control of this. So you're telling your story in a way that suits your objectives, your style, and so on. And these 3 icons that exist at the top, just to summarize, one is edit, one is to grab the URL for the individual wall so that you can share it, and the other one is to embed it. So you want to embed this page onto an internal website or onto a public-facing website like our client Shayla. So hopefully this has given you a really good taster as to what the canvas is all about. But it is one of these genuine creations out of frustrations from our clients. So whenever we're developing new functionality, we're really consulting our client base and prospective client base and trying to understand the challenges that people are facing in the market. And this challenge that we've addressed with the canvas is, how do I present coverage from all of these different mediums and media types in one, consistent format, in an interactive way? Because I think we've all been there where we've created these Excels, created these PowerPoints, or send lots of links on an email, and it's just that feeling that, is my work being read fully? Is it being, engaged with to the extent that I like? Is it doing, is it doing me justice? So this really does, address those issues whereby it puts you in control, but it presents the coverage in a visual format, and that's really what grabs attention. So just to summarize, whatever the type of content, whether it's print, whether it's online, whether it's offline, whether it's video, whether it's social, whatever it is, it would be rendered in here in the same sort of way. So the development that we've done, when you edit the option, or when you click edit, sorry, you then choose what input you want to go for. Is it a web link? Is it a tweet? Is it a Facebook post? And then it will all display in the way that it needs to in the front end. So that's probably it from me. I think a few questions have come through, yeah, I think one final point just to add before jumping onto the questions is that the content for this, some of you might be thinking, well, where would I get all of this content? So if any of you guys don't know, we are actually a news aggregator, media monitoring solution as well. So our media monitoring tools integrate with the Canvas, so do our press release distribution tools. So very much so, the Canvas is available as a standalone solution. But for clients who use other tools and other services, so for example, for clients who distribute their press releases via our system, they can be posted straight onto Canvas. For clients who are using us for media monitoring, you can jump into your monitoring tab and you can select items that you wish to display onto the Canvas. So I guess that's just a bit of food for thought, that if we were to speak to any of you after this session, then we would be able to, perhaps talk about how we could help you in a more fuller capacity as well, potentially. So just to turn out to some of the questions that my colleague's passing me over here. So Jane has asked, how easy is it to embed a Canvas on a corporate website? So when we're dealing with customers who want to do this, generally it's a case of grabbing that code which was on the screen, and then for what I would normally do is suggest that you pass that to IT, who would know exactly what to do with it. So from my experience of having worked with, on the new business side of things, customers who are interested in doing this, it's a case of working with that code, which is a specific code for that page, and then passing that to your IT team if you aren't managing the website directly, and just working with them, who would normally be able to upload it and would know exactly what to do with it. But if that turned out not to be the case, then obviously our technical team would be able to assist as well. But normally what happens is that code would be dealt with internally by the people or the company that manage the website. But we're very happy to help with that as well. With regards to another question, so Sarah's asked, can I take content out and add new content in when things change? Yeah, absolutely. So the edit button that we were looking at would allow you to swap tiles, delete tiles, add, replace, remove, and so on and so forth. What's really nice is any changes that you make would then render on the URL automatically. So let's say it was embedded on a website, you would then be able to have the changes that you make automatically coming through onto the website. So you control the back end through Vuelio. The changes are then instantly public on the front end of it. Was there another? So is the Canvas a bolt-on service or exist in the platform as standard? So that's from Serena. So the Canvas is a service that can be bought in its own right, or it's a service that, so the question was, does it exist in the platform as standard? It's a bolt-on service, so it's something that clients can opt to have or not. So it's something that could be bought as a standalone solution. Most of the clients who purchase our media monitoring software would actually purchase the Canvas as well, just because they fit so neatly together. But ultimately, you don't have to. Someone's asked about licenses. So what about licenses to show our cuttings to all via the Vuelio Canvas? So that's from Sue. Ultimately, there it does depend on your license arrangements with the NLA. So if you're displaying it internally, it'd be a case of whether or not your NLA license covers the ability to showcase coverage to X amount of people. So the answer to that is really dependent on your license. So if you are a client or an organization that only holds, say, a web end user license with the NLA, then you wouldn't be able to post print content on our Canvas, for example. So I think that's one thing to bear in mind, is what type of license you have. The other thing is just to think about the type of content you're posting, because obviously if you're just using this to post social content or your own press releases, then that isn't licensed in the same way as, say, newspaper coverage. This question is, do videos in the system or tweets and the likes, hold on, do videos play on the same page, or does, oh sorry, I'm reading two different things at once. Videos do just play on the same page from within the canvas, so they just open out as you display it. So it doesn't follow you in, it doesn't link you into a different site or anything like that. I should also mention, by the way, just in terms of viewing and interacting, I've obviously shown you from a computer today, but one really, really nice thing about this is the ability to view these from mobile tablets as well. So in terms of being able to just pick this up on an iPhone and scroll through it, play the video from there, click through to the links, it all renders really, really nicely. And just recently, we were actually at the political party conferences, and we were walking around with canvases, you know, displaying and summarising our coverage actually on the move, which was a really good example of putting that into action. So can you, one I think final question is, can you input data from Excel or from elsewhere such as Excel? Yeah, absolutely. So there are charts and graphs that can be built within the Vuelio Canvas. So there's specific widgets where you could say, take a bar chart or a pie chart, and if you wanted to then label the columns accordingly to say, okay, column 1 says that we had 44 likes on Facebook, column 2 says that we had 72 likes on Twitter, and so on. Ultimately, yes, you can take the data and then display it in a graphical format so that you've got charts and graphs and then numbers and annotations alongside the coverage. So hopefully that answers the bulk of the questions. I'm just conscious of not running over too much on the allotted time. What we'll do is we'll just double check. So I've just had pieces of paper and things like that popped in front of my face. So we'll just double check that we have answered all the questions. We'll also make sure that those that we have answered, that the answers are clear. So I think there's been some great interaction today and some really positive comments that we'll most likely follow up with certain people directly, as I said, just to make sure that we can answer your questions and answer them well, and possibly you know, carry out a few tailored demonstrations as well to really bring this to life for some of your own personalised needs. So thank you very much for the time. I hope you've all enjoyed it. I hope it's given you some great food for thought. Have a good rest of the day, everyone, and we'll look forward to hopefully talking about this in some more detail with some of you. All the best. Thank you.